Hey everybody, this is Will at Downs Law. As you may have seen, the CDC recently extended the eviction moratorium through June 30th of this year. This CDC moratorium started in September of last year and has been extended. This is the third time. So I just wanted to kind of briefly go over what the CDC eviction moratorium is and what it does, given that it's going to be in place for a few more months. So let me share my screen with you. So in order to qualify under the moratorium, and this applies only to residential property, so a tenant must meet certain criteria in order to qualify. So as you can see, they must use best efforts to look for financial assistance to pay rent. The tenant must not earn more than essentially $100,000 or $200,000 if married. Can't pay the full rent because of lost income or extraordinary medical expenses. The tenant must try to pay as much rent as possible, and the tenant must certify that they would likely become homeless or have to live in a shelter or another crowded place if evicted. So in order to establish the right to these criteria, or that they qualify for these criteria, the tenant must do what's called submit a sworn declaration and present that sworn declaration to the landlord. And that form can be found online, the CDC's website, or various other housing advocacy websites have this form available. And so once the tenant presents this form to their landlord, the landlord is supposed to abide by that and not evict them for monetary issues. So it only applies to non-payment of rent. So there's a lot of other reasons a tenant may be evicted. For instance, violating rules and regulations, or if their lease has expired, or for various other reasons, for other lease violations. But this CDC order only applies to the non-payment of rent. And so once the landlord receives that, they're not supposed to carry forward with an eviction. Now, importantly, it doesn't prevent them from filing for an eviction. So they can go to court, they can pay the court fee, and they can have the eviction paperwork served on the tenant. But so long as they don't actually conduct the set out of the tenant's property, they have not violated the CDC order. So that's an important distinction, because a tenant may present the landlord with the paperwork and then they still get a knock on the door from the sheriff or marshal, and they may feel like they need to get out. But so long as they have presented them with that paperwork, then they should fall within those protections. It also doesn't apply to commercial properties. So commercial landlords and tenants, offices, office buildings, shopping centers, the CDC order does not apply in those situations. So as a practical matter, what has been happening is that the courts have generally been enforcing these CDC orders. And so landlords have been frustrated because under those criteria that we just went over, there has to be a good faith effort to pay the rent. In other words, if you can't pay all the rent, but you can pay some of it, landlords are expecting that. And when tenants haven't paid in months and months, they're wondering how to legally challenge the sworn declaration. And as a practical matter, courts haven't wanted to get involved in this. Once the courts have received the CDC order, or it's been presented to the clerk's office or to the judge, the courts have kind of backed off from any sort of eviction proceedings on tenants. And they haven't really gotten into the challenges to whether the tenant meets the criteria or has made good faith efforts or things of that nature. So it's kind of been courts have just kind of taken an approach. So we're not going to really touch this. A few courts throughout the country, a few federal judges have declared the CDC order unenforceable. But those legal challenges take a long time to process. And so, although it has been challenged in Georgia, no Georgia court has overturned it. And so almost all counties in Georgia are enforcing the CDC order, which again will continue to be in place through June 30th at this point. So that's kind of briefly the state of things on the CDC eviction order. For any other questions, please contact us. You can find our information on our website at www.downslawllc.com. Thank you.